Let me bring in now our third panelist, who will speak also for about 10, 15 minutes, and then we're going to have a chance to ask questions. And here is Joseph Britton. Joseph Britton worked at Princeton University, where he was an instructor of teaching yoga, movement, sound, and meditation, and in a different department, a mechanical engineer designing water and heat energy systems. While living in Japan at Osaka Prefecture University, he was a professor of communications and mindfulness. Joseph also spent many years personally studying with renowned Zen Buddhist master Uchiyama Kosho Roshi in Kyoto, Japan. He has taught seminars throughout Asia and Europe, became a Heller work body and movement practitioner, and presently he's an instructor at Portland Community College Community Ed, also a seminar leader and a hospice volunteer accompanying people who die alone. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Joseph. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us.
Good, thank you, Daniel. And greetings to Dr. Rajurkar. That was a wonderful talk, and also Roberts. And Dr. Yvonne Kaysen earlier this morning. May all of you be well. We've been sitting here for a long time, and maybe just for 15 seconds, we can just kind of shake our body a bit to get our blood circulation going. It's been quite a long morning. You've heard a lot of incredible stories, so maybe just loosen up a little bit before I begin here. That'd be good. I think we'd all feel a little bit better, a little bit more alert. So I'm going to tell my story, and I tell it with great excitement and also with a bit of caution, for it certainly can lead to your greater awareness of the dying process, or also misunderstanding, for these are but words spoken, and you have to more or less translate and give meaning to the words that are spoken. So I will first, I'll begin by presenting the time and the setting, for surely my outer environment contributed greatly to my inner perceived reality. Then I will unfold my near-death experience. So let's go back to September 1979, where all this began. This was a typical, and I'll tell you what a typical day for me was at the time. I would arise at 4 o'clock in the morning and begin doing my yoga and meditation practice, which I did throughout the 70s. For in my home, I had 14 people living in my home because it was a yoga ashram that I directed. Following my practice, I would eat breakfast and walk over to my office at Princeton University campus where I was doing my work. And at the time I was designing these ultra pure water systems and heating, cooling systems for the university. Now at 3:30 in the afternoon, I would then walk across the campus to the Princeton Tower, go up to the top, and I would begin my yoga and meditation class that I was teaching. And I did that for many years. And following that, I would then go to a vegetarian restaurant that I owned. And this was primarily to help give employment to my students. When I finished at the restaurant, I would then, if I had time, I would then go over to the Holistic Health Association in the greater Princeton area. This is a holistic health organization, which at the time we were probably the largest in the country. We had 25,000 members. So I was a co-founder and co-director. So at this time, I really needed a break. So with some fellow spiritual explorers, we went to JFK Airport and boarded a Pan Am. You remember Pan Am? Then we were on our way to Hemkunt Sahib. This was a place that was close to 16,000 feet in elevation in the Himalaya Mountains. And this was the hermitage of Rishi Daman, who was a yogi said to have lived for several centuries in this hermitage. So we first landed in then Bombay, soon Mumbai, this incredible city, a sprawling city of silks and rags and intoxicating aromas, foul smells, Bollywood pop and ecstatic music. and then on to Delhi, then upward to Rishikesh, which some people call the yoga capital of the world. This is where some of you might remember where the Beatles composed many of their songs for the White Album. And Mike Love, the Beach Boys, and Paul Horn, Donovan, they all meditated there. So after Rishikesh, we went up to Srinagar, where we later began our trek up to the first base camp. It was 6,000 feet. Now at this time, I had already developed a fever, and I had these wrenching stomach pains, but I was very determined to get to our destination. So in the morning, typically we'd wake up and we'd have breakfast of buffalo yogurt, dal, chapatis, chai, and then continue on our trekking journey. Now, along the way, I also developed this very severe knee pain. And it was cold and the tundra was frozen with snow and ice. And along the way, I also noticed there was a small cave, which I put my flashlight in, and there was an ascetic sitting in there. This is in the freezing cold. He was naked and he was meditating, and I just bowed to him and continued on my way. So finally, after many hours of hiking and sweating and freezing and shaking with dysentery ripping through my body, pierced with pain, we made it to the top, and it was just absolutely extraordinary beauty being in the Himalaya mountains, just so incredibly beautiful. So by this, next to this hermitage, there was the hermitage, maybe 15 square feet to this stone structure where Rishi Dashdaman was said to have meditated for these hundreds of years. There was this crystal clear glacier lake. And so we did what everyone else did. We dove into the lake, this freezing cold, icy waters, and it was ecstatic. I was exhausted, pain in my joints. My GI tract was crying, but it was also so totally incredible. But it was also, you know, it was breathtaking physically and metaphorically. So with my sore body and this cold atmosphere, we headed back down. By the way, you know, in the Himalayas, these sunsets are like these electrified orange-red colors bursting, you know, in the sky. And then at nighttime, it would turn into this bright night light show. It was truly transcendent. Now, finally, after making our way down and taking a bus, I went back to Amritsar, to the Golden Temple. This is where the Sikhs, the main place for the Sikhs. And I was wearing a white garb in respect to Sikh religion. And I was walking around I just finished a meditation. I was walking around this marble walkway, and I felt that there was this impending death was upon me. I hadn't eaten in several days, nor had I drunk water in several days. And the people, they saw this Westerner dressed in white, and mistakenly they thought, oh, this must be some divine being in our presence. And so they came over, so many of them came over and tried touching me and kissing my feet, and I tried to push them away, and they're kissing my hands, and you know, I kept saying, please, please, and more came, and finally I just collapsed on this marble walkway. And I can remember people, some of the men picked me up, and they carried me up to my the guest room, and laid me down on this bed, and then everybody left, and the room was empty, and I was lying on the bed with my face up, and these heavy thoughts and emotions began washing over me, and there was little I could do. And it was, I felt it was paramount that my earthly commitments and relationships with family and friends were in order. they weren't. As certainly, I hadn't come to India to die. At the time, I was but 30 years old. And this was very difficult and depressing, as I felt I wouldn't be leaving this world gracefully. Now, while I was lying on my back, I began going out of my body, rising out of my body and looking down at my body. And this happened several times, rising up and coming back down. And all of a sudden there was like an explosion, and I shot out of my body out into the cosmos. And I was in, I'll use maybe a Christian word here. I was in the valley of death, and it was this black, deep darkness that was darker than the darker of places. And from that point, within this dark space, my life review, we heard from other speakers of the life review, and this is a common experience, and I certainly had it. I went right back to the first moment of my life, going through my inner childhood times of thoughts and feelings. But since I was in this very, very dark space, physically and emotionally, what I was experiencing was of a very unwholesome nature, large and small. And it was even very trivial little things like, oh, I don't like that person's hat. But what happened was that each moment lasted for eternity. Now, of course, in our physical world, the time is objective, and it's relative, measured by life cycles, like planetary cycles and things like that, seasons, but it's also measured by a speed and mass, dealing with relativity. But in this liminal space, it's subjective. So time for me was, each moment was eternal. Now, the emotional pain was way, way beyond anything I could ever have imagined. And there were no boundaries to contain it. For in our physical world, if we have an emotional feeling of, for example, anger or maybe empathy, there's a limit to how much we can feel. It may be a lot, but still there's a limit. In this liminal space, each negative feeling created a vibrational reality for me at the moment, was destructive and discordant, immeasurable and without end. That thought formation was all that existed. There's nothing else, just that energy thought formation. And I was totally immersed in a world, a reality consisting only of that vibration for eternity. Then on to the next one. Interspersed within these memory rides appeared thousands and thousands of friends, people that I had been teaching in my classes, people that I had met in my travels around the world. Most of these long ago, completely forgotten. So many memories that had been completely washed away in the river of time, now in full view. So at some point from within, a deep source from within me, in this sea of vibration arose a chanting and singing and playing and laughing that was so much a part of me for so many years. And slowly light started to come in, and my actions of goodness began to appear. And the light gradually became brighter and brighter. And I was immersed in this unimaginable joy of this love and harmony within me became my reality. And it was, I was immersed in this like a symphony of the spheres, the sea of ecstatic sound vibration that was boundless. It was not merely around me, but as me, within me. There's no other that was separate from me. Within this eternal space was a presence that was existing without form. It was in my field of reality. It was part of me. This presence was not so much transmitting teachings, but rather lighting up realizations in my awareness and immersing me in clear luminosity, and putting these events in some Chronological order, faith was next brought into my awareness. This was initially a big surprise to me, as it wasn't a topic that really concerned me or interested me so much. It seemed to be one of those Christian catchwords used by priests, ministers, pastors to keep their flocks in tow. And besides, if faith was real, certainly I must have a lot of it. Directly and really dramatically, I was shown that my faith in the beauty and the power of the creative source was so small that it was almost non-existent. And this included faith in myself. Now, this shocking realization reverberated through me and out into space. It became clear that deep, true faith in the wonder of life within the earthly realm well, let's say this earthly realm has untold power. And this insight was really astonishing to behold. Though this I have glimpsed, I but only imagine how it might be to truly live in pure faith. States of mind, my states of mind arose next. I always felt that organization was my skill. After all, my life, it was full, it was organized, it was upbeat. So this journey into my mental state, it was quite revealing. So much time had been spent in frivolous, negative, selfish, worthless thoughts. And I thought, wow, how could this be? There must be a mistake. This knowing was clear and mentally painful. Within this short, precious life, I've been really wasting too much time giving power to life, energy, depleting feelings. I felt a sense of wasted time and remorse. Realization of the extraordinary creative potential of positive harmonic thoughts were then brought forth, and the wondrous possibilities of life were endless and vast. Now, the next was the most difficult and the most liberating of the teachings. My understanding of what life is, I truly thought I understood what reality is. Well, maybe not so much, but at least something of reality. And it became painfully obvious that my comprehension of what life is all about was so small, infinitesimally small, that basically, regardless of a lifetime of religious and spiritual study, my deep understanding was basically non-existent. I really knew, and it continues today, I really knew not much more than the basics of living, with a little bit of imagination thrown in. The infinite dimensions of life are indescribably vast. The overwhelmingness of this still makes my body shudder and shake with awe, joy, and fear. What followed was a tour of the cosmos that was so extraordinary to behold that an earthly body, certainly not mine, could contain it and would explode and fragment into atoms from experiencing this astonishing, magnificent wonder of the planets, star groups, cluster galaxies, swirling colors, star systems forming and disappearing in this great cosmic dance. It was like the 15th century mystic of India, Kabir, once said, worlds upon worlds, beneath and beyond. So I needed to go back into the body, and I returned, but I couldn't speak. I couldn't use my mouth, and certainly stringing words together in a coherent way really seemed to be impossible. So I realized how important it was to have my brain healthy to facilitate my mind. So suddenly I was fully back into my body with full cognitive and sensory functions. Upon gaining worldly consciousness, I opened my eyes. There was an IV in my arm, and there was people in my room, and there was an Indian doctor standing over me. And I looked up into his eyes, and he said, "Welcome back. You have died, and you have returned. You have come back." So I looked around, and I saw the people there, and I said, "What day is it?" And someone in the room said, "It's Wednesday." And I said, "Well, when am I scheduled to go back to the States?" And there was a light laughter in the room, and someone replied, "You're scheduled to leave this Friday, but due to your condition, you might be here up to a month recovering from the amoebic dysentery that you had." So I said, "Okay." So early Friday morning, this is 2 days later, sun arose, and I got into this, like a cycle rickshaw. Went to Amritsar airport, flew to Delhi, went to Mumbai, went to the Pan Am counter, and at that time they opened up the big book, and the clerk there behind the counter, airline clerk, he said, "Oh, I'm very sorry, sir, but your name is not listed." So I said, "Okay." So I pulled out some rupees, moved them across the counter, and he excitedly exclaimed, "Oh, there you are on the list." So off I went, got on the plane, landed in JFK Airport, kissed Mother America, went immediately to a gastroenterologist who did a complete checkup on me and said, "Well, you've lost a bit of weight here, but you're in perfect condition." And I was. And I realized at this point that there are many paths going up the mountain, and the cosmos doesn't doesn't really care which path you're taking, just as long as you get there. Um, so you know, there are many things that happened to me. These extraordinary powers opened up of seeing into people's bodies, but because we are on a time limit, I won't go into that, other than mentioning I was these extraordinary things of just laying my hands on people and looking at their organs and their condition. And this happened, and I denied this for the longest time, but after this happened a couple hundred times, I finally believed, oh, yes, okay, this is real. Anyways, here we are, and my time is up, so thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you so much, Joseph. We really appreciate you sharing your experiences with us. Wow, it's been great to hear from the three of you about these, no doubt, life-changing experiences. And I think that Robert did a great job of sharing with us that, you know, these are deeply personal experiences. It's often hard to put into words or to validate or communicate how powerful these can be. And so one of the questions I can start with really quickly for you, Robert, is having all these experiences being so